Oh, yeah.
We'll call the Monday, June 24th, 2019 regular meeting of Peters Township Council to order. Mr. Lauer, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Merrill.
Present.
Mr. Stigler. Mr. Arcuri.
Here.
Mr. Kozar.
Here.
Mr. Burke.
Here.
Mr. Ball.
Present.
Mr. Woods.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of June 10th, 2019.
Move that be approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
One comment. The name, Tom Mulaney's name is nowhere near that. Appointed to EQB.
Yes, the appointment of Mr. Mulaney for EQB, that his name was completely spelled incorrectly.
Okay. With that change, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
I was not at that meeting, so I am a...
Abstention.
Is it abstention?
Yes.
601, Mr. Lauer.
Then it's an abstention.
Next item is special reports, Montour Trail update.
Good evening. I'm Mark Imgrund, past president of the local Friends of the Trail group. You've seen me for the last 15 years, and I'm here partly to introduce the new president of the Peters Friends, Dr. Wayne Frimmer, who's going to be giving the majority of the report tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Shoes to fill.
Welcome.
So, yeah, we're going to give you the annual update, and this is, you have a handout of our 2019 plan. You should have had that, and basically that's just a very brief outline of what we accomplished in 2018, mainly resurfacing the limestone from the brush run to the Bethel line. Actually, the whole Bethel branch was done. We also, Mark and I installed the Trail of the Year sign, which is at the junction there. And that was we were the 2017 Pennsylvania Trail of the Year, awarded by DCNR, and that's at the junction by the kiosk. We paved the Greer Tunnel, which was a big event, as that was a pretty messy surface there. And as you can see, we had 1,640 volunteer hours, so we have a good group of volunteers. The projects planned for this year, 2019, actually some of them are done already. The etiquette signs on the mileposts, you may have seen them. This is a trail-wide project. There's 8 different signs around each milepost. Keep right except to pass, 6-foot leash, clean up after your pets, all things like that. Warm before passing. We're trying to get on the whole trail a little more safety, a little more cooperation, especially people leaving their dog bags on the trail, which we see all the time. So those are already put up last week, 2 weeks ago. We have some refurbishing to do and planters and things like that. We are conducting our twice monthly work parties. That's first Friday and third Saturday. And our events are the same. The Twilight Trail Walk, July 26, Penny Day fundraising on the trail on October 5th. And we'll be putting a booth up at Peters Township Community Day Saturday. So those are our main events. One thing not on the handout there was a program that we started in conjunction with the Pittsburgh Melanoma Foundation and an organization called sunsmartpittsburgh.org. There are 2 organizations that have come together and are distributing sunscreen dispensers. These are automated dispensers, battery operated, and they've placed 30 of those in Pittsburgh City Parks and Brentwood and a couple other communities. And they asked us if we be interested in this, and we agreed to do that. So we've placed 2 of these on our trail, one by the Sanitary Authority at the top of that bridge, and one at the kiosk by the horse farm at the junction. So it's a yellow box about this big. It's automatically distributes a dose of sunscreens. So far, it's been used. I can see that there's people are using it, clean them up a little bit. There's a little bit excess, but it's a program that if it's successful and we don't have vandalism and problems with it, that we may do it on a trail-wide basis to help with preventing skin-related problems for the sun. So that's what we're planning for our local area. I had some updates on local trail projects in our adjacent areas here. To the east, from Pleasant Street, where the library viaduct is, to Stuart Road, there's a gap there, and we're working on that. There's the old Console property. There's a development going in there called Summit Station. That's 2 90-unit apartment buildings, and they've already constructed a trail road, a bridge over their entrance road for us. So our trail, when we get it finished in that area, will go over their entrance road, and there'll also be a connection to the library light rail station. So that's a project ongoing right now. The Bethel Branch extension, this is actively being pursued by our Bethel friends, and this will be an extension from South Park Road to Millennial Park in Bethel. That's the old right-of-way for the Montour Trail, and that's in the planning stages. Then in the other direction, out towards Cecil, just west of the National Tunnel, there's a McConnell's Trails housing plan going in Cecil. That's 270 homes, and they've built a bridge over the trail for their access road to the plan, so that's already in place as well. So there's lots of things going on both sides of us, and these developers want to connect their projects to the trail. They've offered to extend our parking lot at McDonald Road as well. So these are all things that are presently underway. The overall Montour Trail projects, a couple of things I just mentioned. The National Tunnel, the big tunnel in Cecil, we did a test program putting temporary doors on it in the wintertime to cut down on ice buildup. That was successful, so now there's permanent doors being installed. These are, they open up for the summer, and in the winter there's a center section that has plastic strips hanging down to keep the temperature, so people can still go through there, but keep the temperature from freezing. We're pursuing a grant to repave that tunnel. It was last paved in 2008. And we're also looking at our tunnel, the Greer Tunnel in Peters here, getting design and quotes for repairing the ceiling where the water and sometimes the gravel comes through with the cracked ceiling. Other things, there's been a long effort to try to make some type of a safer crossing at Route 51 in Large for the trail going towards Clareton. That's difficult problem, but Ned Williams, our president, has been working on that. And then planning stages, this South Point connector with Cecil and South Point has been under this discussion for some time, and there's also been some meetings about an Upper St. Clair connector, which not very active right now, but that's a possibility, running along the Frosty Valley Railroad, joining our trail. So that may or may not happen. So that's just an overview of the whole trail. So that's what I wanted to present. Any questions or comments or?
Well, I think we're all probably interested in the gaps that continue to exist. Certainly going east, you've got some major obstacle there in South Park or Library.
Right. That's the hardest gap we have, well, besides Route 51, that, as far as getting through that Brownsville Road is a miserable road to drive on. We've got most of that in the planning stages. There's one property there, the self-storage area there that we've been dealing a couple of years with, trying to get that. I don't know, where does that stand now, Mark?
The owner of the property, I think, has the agreement back for the second time for referral to his attorney, but we expect that to be signed anytime in the next couple months. We have money for it. We just need basically the agreement with the property owner.
That section's probably 2 years away to be completed.
It won't get done this year, no.
No. Then further on, the Piney Fork Road, the trail picks up again, and there's a section that they're already working on from where it rejoins Piney Fork to the Green Man Tunnel. That's under.
I haven't heard that word in a long time, but
The Green Man Tunnel.
I know it well.
So that piece is also volunteer work's being done on that piece.
Yeah, I would like to just say that, in the time I've been here, it's been about 15 years. I never really knew much about the Montauk Trail because I came from the north. But you people have had a wonderful vision, and you've been so tenacious in pursuing it. And I just have to commend you because you just keep going, and you're really putting it together. So congratulations on everything you've done so far, at least prior to me, but in this short period of time.
Thank you.
Well, 15 years, we don't consider that short.
I know.
That's how long I've been president of the local Springs group. So.
Well, according to Mr. Atkinson, it's a short period of time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good work.
Brother.
Appreciate it.
Next item under special reports is introduction of Corporal Marco. Chief Grimes.
Good evening. It's a rare occasion that I get to do something like this. The Chief of Police time is predominantly wrapped around policy and rules and reg development, budgeting and dealing with equipment and all those types of issues. Tonight we're here for a promotion to recognize Frank Marco for this most recent promotion. Before I call him up here, though, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the things that I see as I go around the area and speak to area chiefs of police. And each one of us have issues in relation to budgeting or equipment or personnel. But the biggest deficit we see, and I suspect this is not just in policing, but across the face of society in general, is a lack of leadership. And so it's important that we develop our leaders. And what you'll see here tonight is the promotion of what we believe is one of our future leaders in this department. Frank, to you, I want to tell you a little bit about the badge and what it means. Police badges are a representation of what once was the coat of arms that was displayed by the Knights. The coat of arms identified the nobility from which the Knights' authority was derived, and to this day, many organizations refer to their badge as a shield. The Knights' coat of arms represented their kingdom, that the Knight represented the Knight's authority, the Knight's allegiance to justice, and perhaps in today's age, most importantly, the Knight's integrity and his chivalry. Much like the Knights of those days, police are sworn to protect and serve. You're sworn to protect the weak, to defend the defenseless, and to impartially preserve justice for all. As a supervisor, you will be taking the next step where you're no longer responsible only for yourself, but rather you'll be responsible for the actions, the inactions of the personnel under your command. By virtue of your acceptance of this promotion, you have accepted this responsibility and are sworn to ensure that personnel under your command will perform justly and work diligently to preserve peace and justice for all. So I'd like to introduce to you Corporal Frank Marco. Frank hails from Robinson Township in Allegheny County. His parents are Frank and Debbie Marco. Frank Sr. Is a retired sergeant from Robinson Township PD. Corporal Marco is a second-generation police officer. Corporal Marco resides currently in South Strabane Township with his girlfriend Larissa. Officer Marco was hired in Peters Township in March of 2013. He has worked in both investigations and patrol. Officer Marco was officially promoted to corporal on June 2nd, 2019. And he is honored to have been given this opportunity, and he looks forward to serving the citizens and residents of Peters Township while continuing to develop his leadership skills. Corporal Marco. Congratulations. Look forward to working.
Chief, before you walk away, can you introduce the other members of your department that are here? I certainly recognize a number of them, but I'll have to admit there are some faces I'm not familiar with.
Okay, in the front row here, we have Sergeant.
I know him.
Detective Evan Caruso. Come on up as I call you guys out. Detective Evan Caruso. We have Corporal John Bruce.
We know him too.
Officer Pat Pizzata.
And him. He's a good teacher.
He is a good teacher. Officer David Scarpone and Sergeant Jason Burnett.
Would anybody object to a round of applause for recognizing? Thank you.
One thing.
A little bit of a tribute
Go ahead.
to how much they appreciate Corporal Marco to come out here tonight. Some on their own time.
One thing.
All right. Thank you, guys.
You're going to stay for the whole meeting, though.
One thing I wanted to.
Unusual. Yeah, really.
One thing I wanted to comment on, and Mr. Lewis can also attest, if any of you have a chance to attend the Citizens Police Academy, many of the officers participate as teachers. It's a wonderful experience. There'll be another course coming up in the fall, I believe. It's worth your time.
Mr. Kozar, I know it's not on the agenda, but I wanted to take the opportunity with Chief Grimes here and Sergeant Collins. They've been working on a program with regard to houses of worship in Peters Township, and we wanted to take that opportunity to be able to explain to council what's occurring there. So.
Good evening. Most of you do know me, Sergeant Collins, Peters Township Police Department. I've been here for approximately 24 years now, come August. The Citizens Police Academy, I teach in that as well. But the program we wanted to explain today is our House of Worship Police Officer Liaison Program. So basically in the project overview for this, it's a two-prong approach is what we're trying to do. The officers will be assigned to a specific church or house of worship where they'll be able to ascertain any community problems that our police department can assist in mitigating. At the same time, we will provide an opportunity for our department to share information to the community on points of safety, security, and community wellness. It will give us an opportunity to harden known soft targets within our jurisdiction. So just some quick stats here. We have 11 churches in Peters Township. We had 12. One, I think, moved out. But 11 churches currently. The congregation numbers are roughly around 18,000. And I'll explain the congregant numbers here shortly. Basically, we do weekly patrols at all churches. That is at an absolute minimum. We are there a lot more than that. We do routine patrol through the lots in the evenings and when we're requested to be there. But typically on Sundays during service times is when you'll see police officers in the parking lots either walking through the churches if that's what the churches want. And since the inception of the program, we've had 47 police reports generated with the program. And that doesn't mean crime reports. It's more of public relations, talking to them, asking them what their needs are and things like that. So the church assignments, the Bible Chapel has 4,600 congregants, and we assign 2 officers to that church. I don't know if you've been there before. It's quite large and quite in-depth there. They have a great security program already, and we want to enhance that. Center Presbyterian Church is manned by Corporal Green. They have 250 congregants. Crossroads Church of Christ by Corporal Bruce. at 100, Faith Community Lakeside at 200 with Officer Mady, and Our Redeemer Church is Sergeant Davis. Peace Lutheran has 200 congregants. Corporal Horos mans that one. Peters Creek United, they weren't sure on their congregation number, so I didn't want to put it up there. But Officer Jacobs handles that church. And St. Benedict, the abbot, they show 10,560 congregants. That doesn't mean that 10,000 people are there every Sunday, but that's
guarantee that.
how many people they have assigned to the church. So that's what kind of brings up the numbers, but that is a quite large church there. And St. David's Episcopal, Officer Bonzak handles that one, and we have Trinity Methodist Church at 815 congregants over on Center Church Road. So the responsibilities of the officers, at a minimum, they make monthly contact with the church and to keep apprised of any issues or concerns that the church may have. We have a point of contact assigned for each church. Officers also have formulated a critical response plan, which we have trained on through the year of 2018 in our in-house training. We actually took the group of officers out to each church, explained the layouts. They're familiar with the church, but they may not be quite familiar with the downstairs of the church, the upstairs, and some of the other areas with inside. So that was a very important thing for us to do. So if we did have an incident at one of these churches, the officers are now familiar with how they're going to respond. But that plan is an interdepartmental plan. It's protected information. We don't disclose any of our tactics or anything like that. Any weaknesses that the officers discover during our security assessments can be identified, and hopefully we can mitigate them through options or referrals to the churches. And we arrange training presentations similar to the ALICE type training or the avoidance training of violence with the churches. That is something that's coming in the near future. We want to counsel church youth when requested and attend youth group meetings in a Q&A format. We definitely want to get involved with the youth. We want to mentor them and also let them know that we're not just a police car driving in their neighborhood. We want to have direct contact. And we kind of got that off of the school resource officer program. Officer Stevick and Officer Judd, they do a really good job with interacting with the children. So we want to get that involved with the street officers as well. We want to attend church meetings as needed or requested by church staff, promote other community-oriented programs such as the Citizens Police Academy, and we are basically the direct link to the church. In case they don't want to call 911 or they're hesitant to call 911 or they may have a congregant that has an issue, they can call their liaison officer and he can be in contact with them as well. Church walkthroughs or lot checks during service times as well. The upcoming activities, we're getting into Vacation Bible School time. So we want to get involved with their Vacation Bible School. We want to do some presentations with them. We want to be involved with the group functions of the youth group. They go on excursions and things like that, and I think it would be a good opportunity for us to mentor. The big one that I'm excited about is a presentation with ushers and elders on detecting suspicious behavior or thoughts on security. They are probably the first layer of any church in security. Maybe they don't understand that they're security, but they are the first layer. They know who goes to church every Sunday and who doesn't, and who would be strange or unusual going into their churches. So we want to talk to them and give them some basic training on that. Interaction with the Vacation Bible School activities, and we will do annual security inspections as well as recommendations. We can't tell them what to do, but we can offer our suggestions and see where it goes. But this program is in its infancy stages. I tried to look to not reinvent the wheel. I thought, I'll just find a program that's going on somewhere else in the country. I could not find another program where officers are specifically assigned to each individual church within their jurisdiction and develop it in a format such as this. There's plenty of training and there's plenty of data out there on how to protect houses of worship, but not in depth like a program that we have. So we may be the first for this model. Yes, sir.
Very grateful for what you put forward here. There's one element of the church activity that I don't see you covering, and that would be the preschool programs that many of these congregations and churches run.
Absolutely.
Funny you should mention that.
Well, it wasn't a primer for you, but...
As it turns out, Sergeant Collins and I just had a discussion about daycares. He had come to me. Let me tell you a little bit of a background of this real quick. Sergeant Collins had received a request to put on a class or a training for one particular church. As we talked through that, we thought it didn't make a lot of sense to do it that way. Let's invite all of the churches. So a little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, Sergeant Collins and I taught all the security directors or people, leaderships of churches about security and what was important in regards to that. From that, Sergeant Collins came to me and said, you know what, I'd like to take this to the next step. Let's have a liaison. We talked through that. That's how this program got there, where it is currently today. Last week or two, he came to me and said, we probably need to look at this for the daycares and the preschools that we have in our area as well. And so that precipitated that. And we're trying to push some of that back right now. We got a lot of little things going on. Sergeant Collins is pretty busy. We have some other work that we're going to be doing in the school here in the fall. But that's something that's on the plate and we're going to develop. So they're important elements of our community.
Yes, the fall was probably the time to start that, because when the preschools begin in the fall, when the regular school year begins, then the liaison officer, they'll be assigned to go to the director and then say, what can we do to help? And we have all the time, there's preschools that are asking for recommendations or requests for security. So.
Well, maybe you'll get welcomed as much as the firemen do.
I don't know. I don't know. They really do.
The dog,
their trucks are bigger. Their trucks are bigger.
Yeah, they have bigger toys.
Well,
Yes.
in light that obviously what's happened here in Pittsburgh recently, and this is outstanding. And,
Yes.
And obviously it can happen.
Well, I'm not
here in our neck of the woods.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. And I'm not giving anything away here because it's been all over the media, but we've been doing a very good job with the schools in our country with locking them down and hardening them. That was a hard push back in the late 90s where we found doors open at the schools all over the place. But now you cannot find an unlocked door except for the front one where you're challenged. Now, so we know that the security threats have been pushed to softer targets. Where is that? The houses of worship, preschools, things like that. So we definitely want to get ahead of the curve and hopefully help them with their security program.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great program.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the audience comments section of the meeting. This is the portion of the meeting where any member of the audience can speak for up to 5 minutes on a non-agenda item. I don't need to ask the question because I see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd. So instead of does anyone want to speak, who wants to speak first?
Come on, Bob.
Mr. Simmons?
Bob Simmons, 170 Simmons Road. I've been a resident of Peters Township for 57 years.
Oh, no.
In 1993, Peters Township Council and Planning got a bunch of farmers in Peters Township together, 25 to be exact, I believe what it is, and it was a lot of acreage. And we had public hearings, meetings, so on and so forth, and formed an ag security area. The ag security area was recorded at the courthouse. It's here signed by Mike Silvestri, all the minutes from the meetings and the council members and stuff. It's recorded at the courthouse. That agricultural security area provides some protections for farmers from you or government. It does a lot, and it does other things too. It was formed at that time, because I was there, to help stop the Southern Beltway from going through Peters Township. That was its main purpose. So I happened to look through the law, and in the law it says that you were supposed to form a agricultural security area advisory committee consisting of 3 local farmers, 1 resident, and 1 township member, and 1 representation from the township. So I wrote a letter to staff asking for any information on that. And the other thing, it was supposed to be at a minimum, that committee was supposed to advise, give farmers a say, give farmers a chance to give advice to the council and so on for things going on in the property within that agricultural security area. So at a minimum, the law says that you're supposed to have a review of this agricultural security area every 7 years. And I just, being a farmer in here and I was one of the farms in the agricultural security area, I've just never heard of anything happening. I've never heard. So I sent a letter and asked for any information on it, the meetings, the minutes from any of the meetings of this committee, or anything that they said, any communications between them and the county planning commission, just anything about the agricultural security area. I got no response. So I'm here asking, it's about 25 years overdue. I'm asking for any information on the ag security area, what's going on with it.
I think it's forgotten. I think you might find my name in that program.
I would say, yeah. I would say yes.
Not that I want to admit that I've lived here 53 years like you have or whatever, but quite frankly, I've forgotten all about it, which I think is probably exactly what's happened with it.
And I think that's a fair statement. Mr. Simmons sent in that request early last week. I haven't had a chance to review that, but I think that's a correct assumption.
And I encourage us to reopen what its mission was and have a dialogue, whether it be in that same format that was established at that point in time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
very good.
And actually, what Bob is describing is actually provided by state law, so there's a format that we need to follow, and what you're suggesting is...
You want to be on a committee?
Sure. Maybe. I don't like politics. Maybe my wife might be better. I'm not good at politics.
She sat through a police
Way to
academy.
pass the buck.
with me, so.
Thank you for bringing it up. I mean, I remember the period of time that this community was going to be divided in half. So,
Good evening. Ron Books, 855 Beebot Road. As you may have guessed, I'm here to talk about the swimming pool. Last week, or last meeting, I suggested the possibility of looking into the new pool that will be built at the high school. Has anybody talked to the school representatives to find out if it would be feasible to use that pool during the months of June, July, and August?
I have not talked to them recently, but I know the answer to that question, and the answer would be when school's not in session, that there would be an opportunity to be able to use that facility. What I would point out to you is what I pointed out before is the nature of that pool is that it's a competitive pool, and therefore the water temperatures are such that for most people it would be uncomfortable to swim in that pool.
But it could be adjusted.
I would assume that it can be, because I would assume they have a heater.
I just don't think you could compare a competitive swim pool with an outdoor recreational
Okay.
aquatic facility. It's two different things entirely.
Well, again, you're taking my time. So if you could hold your comment until I'm done, I'd appreciate it. But I took the opportunity this past week to travel over to Upper St. Clair and to examine their facility. Now, as you know, they have both an indoor and an outdoor pool. I was there a Sunday this past week. In other words, a week ago from yesterday. And what I discovered was interesting, at least in my mind. I found that the outdoor pool was open, but by far the indoor pool had many more participants. I would venture to say, without counting, probably double. So the outdoor pool was not to any degree populated by swimmers, either young nor old. The indoor pool being the favored pool. I again went back last Wednesday to just happened to be traveling through the area, so I stopped in and got the $5 tour from the individual who's in charge of marketing that facility. I'm impressed by the facility's available services, not necessarily by the size of the pool. Both pools are not substantial. When I take a look at something like Mineral Beach or Dormont, odd. These pools are not in that realm. Again, I found that the outdoor pool on last Wednesday's occasion, because of weather, was closed, so it left only the indoor pool. And it was moderately occupied by individuals. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. In discussing the pool situation with the person that I toured with, Mrs. Lindbergh, I discovered that their membership ebbs and flows depending upon the time of the year. I gave you a rate card. You should have a rate card. You'll see that there's 3 different sets of rates, one for year-round, one for certain months of the year, and a second or third rate for different months of the year. What's interesting is that they have broken it down by age group. And I would think we probably would want to look at the same thing if we venture into the pool. But I would also like to state that I feel that if we negotiated, I'd like to think that if we negotiated with Upper St. Clair, we could probably get a rate in between the resident and the non-resident rate. In other words, divide it in half. Offer that to them. I think we would probably get an okay. The reason I bring that up is they weren't certainly overwhelmed. The cost of that facility, I think, probably exceeds what they're generating as far as income. So it would benefit them to have people from Peters Township enjoying their facility. As a matter of fact, I know of at least one person who's a township personality who goes over there on a regular basis. They also have, I might mention, the most occupied area of the facility was the gymnasium. They have weight rooms and cardio, and they have probably more treadmills than I've seen in any facility since conception. So that seems to be the high point, the exercise facility, even better than the pools. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, Jolie Cantrell, 446 East McMurray Road. I had a couple of things I wanted to ask about tonight. The first, I sent a request about the welcoming statement or non-discrimination statement that I brought up last week at this time. I had sent an email asking it to be an agenda item. I actually sent that from this meeting. I heard today from Mr. Lauer that it wouldn't be on the agenda and I could bring it up now. So again, I'm requesting that in place of me continuing to push for a non-discrimination ordinance, that we come up with a welcoming statement for our website, which doesn't really have much on it in the About Peters Township part, but we could put that on there. And then for any like future publications, also on the signs that come into the township, we could put, you know, like a welcoming community, at least so that people would see that. And then if we would do that, then I could really see stopping working on the non-discrimination ordinance and putting that on hold until we get back some of that research that we talked about. You guys mentioned that we need to know some things that are going to happen with the Supreme Court, that, you know, you're not concerned about enforcement. So recognizing that and understanding that, I do think we need to look into it. So that's why I'd be willing to wait on that. But I do think we need that statement. The second thing, I didn't know if anyone had reconsidered changing the policy, the 4415, so that it matches the handbook, the employee handbook. I think that would be an easy switch to make. I know you have to write an ordinance. I think it would be pretty textbook to like some of the other ones where you've changed some wording on an ordinance, just to put in that new wording. It could be exactly the same as it is in the handbook. That way it matches. I think it's more updated and, you know, would be a nice thing to see also. And then just the last thing, I just had a question. I had sent in the request for records, and I did receive an email of it. I didn't receive a mailed copy. I didn't know if I was supposed to receive that. It was set up like it was a mailed letter, so I didn't know if that had actually been mailed.
What we're required to do is provide you notification, and if you've received it as an attachment, that would be one way in which we could do that.
Okay, I didn't know if I should have expected it, and it didn't come. That's
Well, here, we're going to ask this question. Tom, did we mail that out, or did we leave email?
Okay. All right, that's fine. So with the non-discrimination statement that we would hopefully put on the website, do you have any questions? I did give the, what I had hoped we would use that was kind of taken from Shenango Township, but I didn't know if you had a chance to look at that or had any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? Seeing no one else, we'll move on to unfinished business, of which there is none. So we'll move on to new business. First item is resolution amending the Peters Township Police Department Policy Manual. Going for the hat trick.
We've seen more times you standing in front of us tonight than probably all year.
Much more than I prefer.
Well, I'm sorry.
So on May 28th, I believe you all were furnished copies of the most recent revisions to policies, and included, to my recollection, 23 policies changes or complete rewrites. So I'm here tonight to answer any questions you may have in regards to those policies. These 23 would conclude the policies that are necessary for accreditation. There are additional policies we will review and rewrite or disregard completely, but these are the final 23 or final policies in regards to accreditation.
So you're going to tell us when we get our accreditation?
Oh, yes, sir. You'll hear me. Yes.
The only comment I would add on to completely finalize the reference section under policy 4010.
Yeah, we've since, as always, once you hand them in, we've found, and some of you in reviewing have found a number of errors that were either numerical or words, simple words like that we will go back and fix. But the content essentially is the same. There is one reference, the email that I received in regards to, with a number of questions, but one in specific about the use of tobacco with officers. We do not have currently any officers who smoke in the cars. So that was a little bit of an oversight on our part. I will change that policy with your permission to include no smoking in the cars and on duty in public view. So,
Be careful now. Now you have to go into no vamping too. So.
yes. Yes, it would. Yes,
What about cell phone use? Are they prohibited from using a cell phone while they're operating a motor vehicle?
Well, the township,
unless it's business related?
the township policy precludes them from using a cell phone while operating a vehicle. In fact, that's just been a recent discussion with my sergeants that I don't want to see that. So it's been made aware and handed down through the chain that I don't want to see that.
The cars only equipped with Bluetooth?
The newest ones that we bought are. There's some hesitancy, I believe, by the officers to link their phone to the cars. I'm not sure why that is.
But the duty phones are obviously.
Well, but the only duty phone would be the sergeants and the detectives, and the detective's car is not equipped with that. In fact, it's due for replacement.
I just like to say, the viewing days, I think you guys did a great job.
Thank you. It's a lot of work.
It is, and they're well written, and they're clear, and they're organized, which is what I appreciated.
Thank you.
One thing I would bring up, I did ask the chief about a few of the policies related to crowd control and some of the other aspects of managing emergency sort of situations. And my concern was, as you know, towards the end we have a statement about the status of the emergency plan. And my concern was that these would correlate or support each other, because there was no mention in the police policies about how the emergency service or emergency management coordinator was involved. So if you don't get into a lot of detail, but I did ask that question about three
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
policies.
And so what happens there is there's a coordinated effort that is initiated by myself or one of the captains to contact the emergency management coordinator and notify him when an incident arises to that level. It may not be in written policy, but it is in fact part of our protocol that we follow. More specifically, like when we deal with, for example, a few weeks ago, the high school graduation, that was a coordinated effort between all involved entities, including the ambulance service. We met weeks before. We coordinated every detail of that. We met afterwards, or discussed afterwards. We haven't met yet. That's Wednesday. But we discussed afterwards kind of a triage or I forget what the word is. I'm losing my mind right now. What? Yeah. So we went back through it. We'll go back through it and to find out where were we deficient and what do we need to change for next year, and then we'll be better prepared for each event as they come. So.
I'll move that we adopt resolution number 60119.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Have these proposed changes been reviewed by the solicitor?
They have all been provided to the solicitor. I can't speak to his level of review.
These policies generally are not high liability policies that you're looking at. They're more personnel, direction, regulatory, and management.
And I can tell you from having talked to Mr. Smith previously about this, on these type of things, what he has indicated to me is that the chief's in a better position to evaluate the efficacy of these than he is, to be quite honest. So.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is award of a bid under the CoStarz program for the purchase of a tractor.
The 2019.
Wait, excuse me. Can I just indulge one more second at the direction of Township Manager Lauer? I just want to bring the council's attention. If you looked at the monthly report last month, you're starting to see some extraordinary differences in our monthly report in reporting of incidents. We had 97 criminal investigations in May. That's up from an average of about 50. That's not to say that there's much more crime in Peters. That's to say the officers that we have and the efforts that they are putting forth in investigations and looking beyond the stop, so to speak, is initiating much more proactive police work than we have seen in the past. That included a total of 581 traffic contacts, which would equate to between 6,000 and 7,000 traffic contacts for a year. So the guys are doing an extraordinary job. I just wanted to take a moment and point that out to you. Thank you for your time.
And part of the reason why that's occurring is that what I see happening inside the police department is that individuals are being empowered to do certain initiatives. So like what you saw tonight from Sergeant Collins. And as a result of that, I think they buy into the program more, and we see then that reflected back in the kind of productivity you'd like to see from your police department. So.
Thank you, Chief. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Thank you.
And our best to the captain, please. I know she contributed immensely to the program.
Yeah, good point.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, next item is award of a bid under the CoStarz program for the purchase of a tractor.
The 2019 capital improvement program includes an allocation of $65,000 for the purchase of a tractor. We're proposing to acquire that tractor through the CoStarz program. The Kubota tractor that we're looking at would cost $56,944.87, and it's my recommendation that council award that contract to Murphy Family, Inc.
So moved. The motion and the second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to just tell you why I'm going to vote no. Earlier in the year, I mentioned that I think that the management of the Rolling Hills Park should have been done on a contract basis. I know that we would have had to speak to the union, but I think that between the staff money and the additional equipment we're buying, we're paying significantly more for the short term than we should have. I think it could have been handled differently.
So, Ms. Merrill, are you saying you're going to vote against a machine that is, according to the manufacturer, the ultimate package for outstanding performance and maximum operator comfort.
Well, I'm going to vote no because I don't think we needed or should have bought it now. So, yes, I am.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
6-1, Mr. Lauer. Next item is acceptance of the 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
This is in essence, the township's audit. We produce this each year. I'd like to give Mr. Jaworski credit for his efforts in this regard. The other thing that was included in your docket is actually also a copy of the Citizens Financial Report that gets published and disseminated, and it's done in a way that's perhaps for lay people a bit more understandable. One of the things that we have told you before, and this still remains to be the case, the Government Finance Officers Association establishes programs to promote good financial transparency. Peters Township is the only municipality in the state of Pennsylvania to participate in all the 3 of those programs, and is the only one to receive that recognition as a result.
So we need a motion to accept
You
that?
just want to, yes, you want to accept the...
I'll make a motion that we accept the 2018 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is authorization to demolish structure at 110 Fireside Drive.
Yes, there was a fire at 110 Fireside Drive on February 10th, 2019. It's taken a while to be able to complete the insurance investigation at this site. This property is currently in this condition. Peters Township has an ordinance that's provided for under state law in which the insurance company is required to post a percentage of the insurance claim with the municipality to either insure the reconstruction of the building or to cover the cost of demolition. We have contacted the current owner. They haven't shown any interest in demolishing this property, and it's my recommendation that the township manager be authorized to demolish the structure. We have sought and received quotations for doing this work.
10,200.
Yes, and we're holding substantially more than that in escrow, so
Then what happens then? The excess gets returned to the
it gets returned to the property owner.
even if there are tax liens or anything else against
Yes.
the property? All right.
Yes.
I'll make a motion. We authorize the township manager to demolish the structure at 110 Fireside Drive.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question. How confident are you that the same person still owns the property and like they didn't not pay the mortgage and the bank took it over or something like that?
100%. Yeah.
100% confident. We've been in touch with the insurance
Okay.
company, and our records match the county records. There's been no transfer.
Okay.
We've been in contact with the
I
current.
just wanted to make sure. You never know.
And who will own the property after the premise is done?
The current property owner will own it.
So it'll be a vacant
It'll be a vacant parcel.
unmaintained.
That will probably be struggling with
Property maintenance issue.
yes.
So, Mr. Zokis, did the owner actually acknowledge receipt? Do we know that?
They get the certified return
Okay,
of the
okay.
letter.
Then that, to me, confirms that we're good.
Yeah, just to be clear, any liens or garbage liens, tax liens, anything is checked with before the insurance company cuts this check to us. So those liens would have all been settled prior to us receiving that $41,000.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is authorization to solicit proposals for the demolition of 214 Brook Road.
Once again, this has returned to council. As you are aware, we have, for an extended period of time, been attempting to get this property either into compliance with our current ordinances or to have the structure demolished. We have a letter that we were in receipt of back in February from Mr. Courtney's attorney representing that, in fact, a building permit could be acquired and the structure be under construction by May 1st. That has not occurred. We've issued a demolition permit back on April 17th to remove the top story of the building to facilitate the construction of a one-story building that's being proposed by the Courtneys. Work on that has not occurred. One of the things that is required is the replacement of the bridge. There was a permit issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection on December 20th, 2017. There's been no work on the replacement of that bridge. I think we're in the same position we were back when the Construction Appeals Board initially issued its decision in June of 2017. Nothing has changed. And having spoken with Mr. Smith, he believes that the township has done its due diligence in trying to accommodate Mr. Courtney in his attempt to renovate the structure, and he believes, as I do, that it is time for council to authorize the township manager to seek proposals for the demolition of the structure.
So moved.
Okay. I would tell you Mr. Courtney is here.
Can I speak to that?
Sure, come forth, sir.
Ed Courtney, Springdale Road, Benicia, PA. I agree with some of what Mr. Lauer said. The facts are the bridge does not have to be done until the building is done. We asked to demolish the second story on September 13th of last year, so we could do that through the winter and make it a much more appealing site, to say the least. Mr. Lauer chose not to recommend that because he said we would not get our plans done. Let me paraphrase. I'm going back to 17. We weren't ready to start that building, and it's been 2.5 years of tens of thousands of dollars of renewing plans and meeting new specs. I picked up your demolition permit on May 1, and I also dropped off all the requested changes of plans that you requested on April 26th. I pushed my professionals heavily to get them done by May 1. And that was not a date set by Planning Commission. That was a date that I thought we could have it all prepared and ready to get a building permit for. That was not Planning Commission's recommendation. They had no date set on that. I had a hand-drawn thought that we could get a building permit by May 1. I have gotten a bill for $1,400 to review those plans, and I have not yet received the building permit. I did take the demolition permit out and thought we were going to get the building permit and we'd just be advancing along a little bit faster. Now, I have done work. There's a full roll-off was taken out of there already. That was all hand done. I did it all myself. I can tell you it's very dangerous to do on that second floor, which is pretty wrought out. There's probably 2 or 3 roll-offs sitting behind the garage door ready to get out of there. And actually, what had happened, and the township is well aware of it, we had a severe damage issue related to the past tenant that I had to remedy because the stink was so bad that the tenants there now threatened to move. So I had to delay this for about a month. Again, we only got the demo permit May 1. We've had 10 days of rain. I tried to get over there. There's no way I can work in there in the rain. It's just too dangerous. Actually, today, I'm done getting the stink removed out of the mess that was left me, and I'm ready to rock and roll over there again, for lack of a better term. Now, I don't understand what this is going to solve, soliciting for a demolition permit, and I did actually put a bid in last time, and surprisingly, other bidders knew my bid, so I don't know how this works. This isn't right.
First of all, I'd like to point out that the information that is needed for both the site plan and the building permit are still incomplete. There was a review done by Gateway Engineers on May 21st, which was provided Mr. Courtney, and none of those items have been addressed.
Well, Paul, I'm looking at these comments now. They're pretty minor.
But the same is true with regard to the building permit. That is.
I completely
that is
disagree.
incomplete.
On May 1, everything you asked for on April 26th letter was given to you.
Not true.
I have not seen
still do not
I have not seen any comments saying anything was not given to you.
We've been provided both in writing and emailed what the deficiencies are. We still do not have the adequate plans for the final site plan approval or to issue the building permit. We still don't have all this.
What's the
I'm not going to
$1,400?
sit here and discuss that specific with you. This has been going on like this for years. It's kind of bad.
But Mr. Steigel, the thing that I will point out to you, even if you are of the belief that these things are minor, the fact that they don't get resolved is indicative of the fact that you have a property that has been out there for years and years and years and incomplete. And nothing that we do seems to move this process along.
You have to admit, Mr. Courtney, we have given you a lot of leeway here. We have extended and extended and extended. And yet the building is in the same condition that it was when we
I
started.
don't dispute that, but this is new to me and to my professionals. Everything was supposed to have been addressed. You just got a new set of plans from the architect, and you got a new, the only thing we're waiting for is a GP11 permit, which my engineer is going to go down and have a site visit with the E
Problem.
DEP.
He does not understand what's not done, what needs to be done. We provide in writing what needs to be done. We never get it. It's a vicious circle that
Right, so we're
never
back
anything gets done.
We're back at the same point we were about 9 months ago when we were soliciting proposals, where we were asked to give you permission to solicit proposals for
9 months
demolition,
ago.
which is what you did, right? And then we voted to table the proposals because
Wait a
Mr.
minute.
Courtney came in with a new plan.
9 months ago, I just picked up a demolition. Mr. Lauer just decided to okay the demolition permit May 1. Again, we asked for this last September to make the site look better until these items, whether they're
There wasn't a plan for a one-story building last September. There has been a plan for a one-story building that's more recent than that, and when there was site plan approval, at that point, we did issue the demolition permit. And like I said, what you don't see is that building still looks the same as it did before.
and in 2 weeks, it'll be down. But
Well, I guess then if that's the case, then we won't have the
We won't
proposals
have
back
the-
in 2 weeks, so then there won't be any issue.
my point is, again, we tried to do this September 13th, and I'm not trying to drag my feet. I'm doing everything I can to remediate this situation. I even decided to take it down against my better judgment to one story. Now, Mr. Lauer, you were at the meeting and you said I would not get the plans in. There's been plans. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars
You don't
getting
have
plans in.
complete plans in right now, because if you did, we would have issued a building permit. Those plans are not complete, nor is the site,
I
or
was
the
not-
conditions
I
for the
was
site
not
plan
told
complete.
this. There was no,
Oh, yes, you have been told that.
Mr.
There was no
Lauer,
question about
I
that.
got a bill for $1,400 and I haven't seen we're waiting for the comments yet.
Okay, so Mr. Courtney, where we are tonight is if we approve this pending motion, Mr. Lauer is going to solicit bids for demolition again. That's going to take between 30 and 60 days, and that's going to come back in front of us again to approve a bid for demolition. So if you get the building demolished between now and then, those bids are going to be rendered moot because obviously there'll be nothing for us to demolish. Possibly.
What he's talking about demolishing is the first floor. What needs, second floor. What needs to happen is that second floor needs to be demolished. The conditions that were issued by Gateway Engineers needs to be met. The DEP permit that still hasn't been acquired to build this needs to be obtained.
When was the application due for the GP11?
Do you know? Does anybody know?
I have it here.
But I guess the point what I'm saying is we're not voting tonight to authorize the demolition of the building.
Well,
Just to
I'm here
move on the
tonight.
process.
I'm here tonight to find out what your intentions are. I'm wondering why I can't get a building permit. I'm flabbergasted. I'm beyond.
Could I ask Mr. Courtney, I'd like to know your intentions too. If we did issue you a building permit, do you have a contractor in mind, or are you going to do
I do
this
it myself.
yourself?
I have
But
my
see,
own
this,
construction.
to me personally, no offense to your skills or anything, this isn't really a do-it-yourself project.
Yes, it is, ma'am. I've been in the construction business since 1975.
You
So-
just said that it was dangerous to be in there. I'm
I
trying
wouldn't
to
say- I
understand what the
wouldn't-
time frame is. If Mr. Courtney, I'm sympathetic because as a somebody who owns property and two buildings on the same property, I can appreciate that you want to improve those and make those viable. I'm not arguing that. The point for us, I think, at council is the length of time this has gone on. If you did get a permit, do you have an end point when you expect the building to be done? Because we can't wait.
You want it to be done within a year. I can't imagine we can't be done within a year. I mentioned it was raining. I don't want to stand on floor trusses in the rain. That's common sense. I mean,
but you also talked about another building that you service yourself. I'm trying to understand there's 24 hours in a day. How will you get that accomplished, even if we get to the point where you have a building?
Mrs. Monroe, I've been working 7 days a week for the last 5.
I'm sure
Let me
that's
finish. Seriously, I've been working 7 days a week. I can juggle things well. I've done it all my life. I've got to solve the main problem of a catastrophe, and again, the township's well aware of what I was left. I've got to get the stink out to appease the other tenants. You would expect that if you were renting something too. So whether I juggle back and forth is not relevant. I'm still wondering, I scratch my head and say, are you really ever going to give us a building permit?
Well, and that's unfortunately not before us tonight, sir. What's before us is do we authorize the manager to solicit bids? And we are sympathetic to your plight, but at the same time, we can't allow this to continue. I mean,
Well, again, and I understand.
It's amazing that no one, including yourself, has gotten injured in that building as many years as it's been in that condition.
Well, first place, nobody can get into the building.
They can't now.
They can't now, but they've been able to for a while.
I worked with Mr. Muzzy talking about getting in there before, and we doubled the remedies to not get in there. The fence was secondary. The fence didn't
I'll
need
make
to
a
be
motion that we authorize.
The motion's already.
So, Mr.
But
Lauer.
there was some information that I think Mr. Stiglitz.
Yeah, I'm on DEP's website now. It looks like they started the review on June 5th. So it's not going to, they won't issue that permit until the end of August.
The GP11 simply has to deal with elevating the floor level of the finished building.
I thought it was a bridge.
The bridge, actually, that's one of my points is the permit for the bridge is done.
Okay, so this GP11 is for the building in a floodway.
Yeah, this is building in a floodway. So there's no reason why the work with regard to the bridge hasn't commenced.
All right, so we're looking at.
The bridge is not.
Well, that's
have to be done
We're not talking about the bridge now.
until the building is done. That wasn't.
His website showed it was a bridge pending for the bridge. So somebody doesn't know what they're talking about here. I don't know who it is.
The GP11 was to raise the floor level to get it out of the
that's what
floodplain.
DEP's website said.
I can get rid of the GP11 by not raising the floor level.
Well, again, we're not voting to demolish the building tonight, so we have a motion and a second to authorize the manager to solicit bids for demolition. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 6-1.
I just want the council to understand my side of it. I am trying to get it done.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Okay, next item is payroll and bills.
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the payroll and bills. I find them in order and move that they be paid.
I second that. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 7-0, Mr. Lauer. On to correspondence. Is there any item we need to discuss under correspondence, Mr. Lauer?
Yes, you have a letter in your docket. It's actually a memo to me from Tim Prenz, from Jenny Montgomery Scott, and Jeff Mills, our bond counsel. And what that letter is explaining to you is the process that we are going to use by which to acquire these bonds. This is the same process we used in 2016. So on the next docket, there will be an ordinance that will provide a not-to-exceed limit for the bonds, which will be well in excess of the $10 million that we intend to borrow. And the reason they do that is that when these bids come in, investors bid portions based upon years out. And so to be able to put this together in a way that appeals to more bidders, there's more options provided. So what we have the ability to do once those bids come in is to pare that down so that in fact the issue is the size that the Township Council has authorized. I know that this can throw people in terms of an ordinance that authorizes $12.5 million of borrowing when we only do 10, but I wanted to get that out in front of council so that if you had any questions, we could get Mr. Friends or Mr. Mills to explain that in greater detail at the next meeting.
Anybody have any questions on the report?
No, I understand.
think if he's going to be, if you're going to have it on the docket, perhaps.
Yes.
He should be there.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on to reports, is there any of the various committee reports that any council member wishes to discuss?
I just wanted to thank the Public Works Department for patching Bower Hill Road and all those little gullies and things along the edge. It looks much better, thank you very much. And also for the other work they're doing. I did have a question about the improvements related to Boyer and to Villa Drive. The comment was it's due to heavy truck traffic on Boyer and a repair of the cul-de-sac on Villa. And again, these are plans in progress. Do we go back to the developers and recoup any of the money related to the expensive material and or labor?
We do not, as a matter of course, do that. I don't know if you have any
I
comment.
can chime in. Boyer, I'm not familiar with what that is, but the Villa Drive,
Boyer's to Whispering Pines.
Actually,
that one we will, yes. That was a, yes, that's an ongoing development. That's due to the Ironwood plan. We've spoken to the developer on that, and he already has a asphalt company engaged to make that repair at his own expense. So that, number one. Villa, there was an issue with one of the radiuses on the cul-de-sac. It didn't meet PennDOT. Well, I contend it did, but we were in a little argument with PennDOT and the local services representative for PennDOT. So we had to go out there and actually flare it out and widen it in order to get liquid fuels reimbursement for that. So it was something that we've already accepted it. We just had to do it in order to make sure that we get continued reimbursement on that from now moving forward. So that's at our expense.
I had one other question. They put up the banners and they look very nice. Do you have we written, and I didn't notice it on the website, is there a place people can go to related to getting a form to apply to do that, or how the process would be if they wanted to be a consumer or a group or anything like that?
These initial banners are a township project, and so I know that we've already received calls from businesses, most of them not in the McMurray Town Center, and so we're going to come up with a policy to be able to deal with that.
So the businesses that are listed, we paid for the banners?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree with that, but
Okay.
I have a question about the ambulance. The letter's dated June 7th, 2018, and it purports to show the trips for the month of May 2018. Is that actually from 2018?
There should be both. There should be 18 and 19 in there. Council had asked us previously to throw in the years before.
Well, I only see one in my docket, so...
there should be both.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's before that. I clicked on there, but it didn't take me to the first one. It took me to the second one.
I do want to talk about the ambulance and where we're
apologize
at.
for that.
Oh, that's okay. I do want to talk about the ambulance as part of miscellaneous, so when we get there.
Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments on the reports? Okay, let's move on to miscellaneous. Mr. Lauer, speak of the ambulance. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis, I didn't see you.
Well, he can have the floor. I'll keep my finger up.
Go ahead, Mr. Lewis.
All right, my comment would have been maybe something I should ask while the chief was here or a solicitor is here, but I could recall reading a decision that communities participating in the group task force traffic stops without authorization from their council are being appealed and successfully
negated? Where are we? I don't remember ever authorizing.
Well, this is, I would guess say that this, and you have not with regard to the DUI task force. Chief Grimes is in the process of reviewing that and quite honestly looking at our continued participation in that group. We're also concerned about this with regard to the joint efforts that we do with the South Hills Area Council of Government. So we're aware of it, and the chief and Mr. Smith are working towards a solution.
I'm not surprised by the response. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lauer, under miscellaneous, go ahead, start with the ambulance, please.
The only thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that we're still having cooperative discussions with the ambulance service, but I can't tell you that we've made any real progress on the reporting. The report that you were to receive in June was to include additional information, and it's not there. And it's the reason why, and I've explained this to Mr. MacArthur, that you have not had on your list of bills the contribution this year. So we're going to continue to try to work through this. I've got a meeting with the ambulance staff on Wednesday, so we're going to give them examples of the kind of information that we would like to see. So that's where we are on that.
Okay, next item is a recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Board concerning baton use at the Recreation Center.
Yeah, first, I would like to tell you that the Recreation Board, as always, kind of impresses me when they have these issues to deal with, because they were able to get engaged in a discussion with the people who use the facility for that purpose. One of the things, as council has directed and the rec board supports, they're going to continue to do baton twirling in the center until after the competition is done in July. It was the conclusion of the Park and Rec Board. They went out and looked at what Michelle was pointing to as the damage. They are convinced also that damage is occurring from batons. One of the things that they also didn't realize but now do is that the vast majority of the people who use this facility for this purpose are non-residents. They're members of the rec center, but they're non-residents. And then finally, the conclusion was, and it was kind of a challenge put to both the people who participate in twirling as well as the staff, is to look at what, if anything, can be done to protect the surface in terms of mats or some other covering. So between now and sometime in August, that's to occur. But like I said, I think more than anything else, once again, I think that venue lends itself to resolving these kind of problems a lot better than here. And to their credit, particularly under Mr. Earhart's guidance, I think they're going to be able to work through this. But I will say, though, there is no commitment that, in fact, going forward, whether there will or won't be, that's something to be determined in August or September.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kim Klein. I am actually one of those out-of-township residents. I live at 17 Gladden Road in McDonald, which is part of Cannon, McMillan, Cecil Township. And everything that he said, I was at the meeting. And the one thing that I'm not sure that you guys are aware of is we were in the gym this weekend, and there's more damage to the floor than what you have been presented. And I just don't want it to be restricted to our group, because I have a very strong feeling if we can't come up with a mat that works for all these girls, it's going to be a challenge, because first of all, the mats are very expensive. I've been in touch with a couple people who work with winter guards through the high schools. They typically get mats that cover the whole floor, which we know is not going to work for our situations. We need just a small area. But I believe that the mats that they have purchased now are like $500 a piece. So that's a concern for them on their budget, as well as us as twirlers. Like, are we going to have to buy the mats, or, how are we going to do that? And then how do we get a mat that's not going to move under these kids? There's a couple of the girls that are very advanced twirlers, and Donna Watson, who's sitting back there, is a resident of Peters, and her daughter does use it too, and she's hitting that level as well. So when they get to the harder tricks, they need the ceiling height, which is why we come to your rec center to begin with, because it's the only place in the area that has the ceiling height these girls can practice these tricks. But there is damage to other parts of the floor. I saw some this weekend. We've got other pictures that I think that nobody's aware of, and they're in spots that the twirlers don't twirl in. So in respects, we want to work with the rec center because we do appreciate the opportunity to use it, especially for me as an out of resident, like an out of area resident. But we also don't want to be told in the fall that we can't come back. We know that we're not the only ones causing damage. And just to give you an idea, the batons do have tape around them, and that was one thing that we forgot to discuss last week. So the tape, when it does, and I'm not going to dispute the fact because sometimes they do come down hard and then you can hear the metal hitting, but there's gamma tape on the middle of all of our batons. So I'm not exactly sure, and I'm not convinced that all of those marks are from baton twirlers at this point. So I just encourage somehow that we get that whole floor looked at, because there's more damage on that floor than these little nicks that these batons are causing. And I would hate to see these girls who worked so hard to get put out of a facility that they need to use because of the damage. We'll do whatever we can to work to help protect the floors, but I just don't want to see them being told not to come back, and I think this is what's going to happen.
In the myriad of emails that I received regarding this, there are many comments how these tournaments and so forth are held in gymnasiums, typically, and I'm wondering, they don't experience the same amount of damage?
We have, I can tell you, Don Sartell, and I know you guys don't know who this is, but he is the owner of ABC Baton Company, runs nationals out of Notre Dame University for this is the 75th, I think the 74th or 75th year that he has had this competition hosted out of Notre Dame University. Granted, there was a discussion on their main gym floor. They are on their regular floor because obviously nobody twirls on a basketball floor that they build up. But they just recently, last year, redid their field house, and their field house floor has the same exact type of floor that Peters has. And we have been invited back with open arms. We're going back again this year.
But I do think there is one difference, and this is the difference that I attempted to point out. When people are here, they're attempting to learn tricks and expand their abilities, and so therefore
more drops.
That's what I would believe, because I would think that when you were in a competition you would be doing the kind of tricks that you have mastered, and so I think that is a difference.
That makes sense.
And I'm not going to dispute that. I mean, but we're still allowed in a lot of major, you see a lot of major universities have twirling lines that twirl at basketball games. They have twirling lines, and I mean, they share the gyms with a lot of other universities too. So I'm just up here to voice my concern and thank the council members who did respond to our emails and help us at least get us through the summer with our nationals. We really appreciate it. But come fall, I really hope that we're not told we can't come back. Not all the damage on that floor. You've only seen this. I haven't seen the drawings that they've been given. I've seen the tape marks. But there is damage all over the floor. And I have pictures on my phone of other damage that's a lot worse than the nicks that they're finding on the floor. I mean, there's a crater in one spot, and, it's not just us. So I challenge.
You could send those to us.
If I can get somebody's, the residents or the members that I have emailed, I'll send them.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
I have a question, and it's only coming from a dumb engineer who has no idea of really, other than about an 8-year-old girl twirling a baton, why something larger on the ends wouldn't protect the floor by keeping the...
I don't think they can do that because they depend upon that baton being exactly weighted in the way in which they use it in competition?
It is weighted. It's
No,
professionally
but he's
weighted.
saying, can you increase the size of the rubber ends?
No. I mean, no, because the rubber ends do help the weighting of the baton,
Right.
so it's even. But here's the analogy. Like, an 8-year-old little girl who's twirling there now is not going to make a dent in the floor no matter what she does. It's the older girls who are doing the big tricks that the baton's coming down, and occasionally it will come down and hit on the floor. So
No, I'm just thinking that if they had a bigger ball on the end, then the
Well,
center of
and
the
then-
baton would
and
never be
that's-
able to reach the floor.
Well, that's what our thoughts are. I mean, it's protected. The first thing they'll hit, usually, unless it's coming from a high thing and it's not in its revolution, because a baton is supposed to be in a revolution until you catch it. But if it's not thrown properly, then sometimes it comes down as a dead hit. And the dead hit is what they're talking about making the damage. But there's not that many dead hits when my daughter goes and practices. There are some, but they're not dead hitting everything they're catching. So
Either end is rubber, so it
Right.
must be flexible in the middle that when it hits, it
Oh, yeah,
must
that's-
then
yeah.
snap.
It's like basic physics.
Yeah.
It comes down like
it could possibly. I mean, I have one out in the car. I mean, I don't know how.
The ceiling's not high
Ceiling's
enough.
too
Yeah,
low. But I mean, it's not like it's a thin piece of metal. It's heavy.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
that's another dumb engineer that doesn't understand how that happens.
But the marks on I don't know if you saw the pictures, but the
I've
marks.
been out, I've seen the marks on the floor.
They're not even consistent. So it's like there's some that are short, some that are long, some have spaces in between.
But
So
I think we've gone through this with the rec board, and I think that was the purpose of that meeting at the
Right.
rec board.
I appreciate it, but all I'm saying is you got at least sympathy.
Yeah, we'll try to work out something.
like I said, I'm just concerned that in the fall we're going to be said. That's just my concern. So I thank you for your support. We will continue to work on mats and stuff like that. But again, it's a concern of the cost on both ends at this point too. So.
All right, thank you.
If I could just add one thing. One of the things I'm concerned about related to the damage to the floor, whether it's baton or something else, any of you who have been up there when there's been an event have seen people walking in. Now, there's a big sign on the door that says no drinks. There's a big sign on the door that says gym shoes only. That doesn't happen. That is not enforced. I've seen people walk through there with hard heels. I've seen people walk in there with drinks and food. So if we're going to do that, I think we do need to talk about, if we're going to restrict it, somebody needs to enforce it. Now, whether
And
that's
they do
causing
enforce
them-
those rules. I can guarantee you that. I can't tell you that they catch everyone who goes in.
On any-
I won't tell you that people don't walk in with regular shoes, but what that does, at the most, what that does is scuff the surface. That surface is refinished once a year, and that happens
I don't know.
regardless.
I'm just saying all things can contribute.
Okay, next item is development of Bruni property roadway connection to Peterswood Park.
I just wanted to bring this to council because there is a developer who has brought in a plan to develop the remainder of the Bruni farm. And that is the property that is immediately adjacent to the softball fields. And the reason why I wanted to discuss this with you, as council may well recollect, when that parking lot went in, it went in with the idea of extending that roadway back to Sugar Camp Road. It's not only, that desire was not only expressed by council in the master plan, it was expressed by council in the deed that acquired the property. So what's being proposed is a road off of Sugar Camp Road, and what's in blue would in fact be a public road, and what's in red would be a driveway owned by the township that would extend back into the park. We took this to the Park and Rec Board to get their input on this. The Park and Rec Board recommended the connection. They also recommended that we have a gate installed in case we want to close this off, since it's not a public road and it could be closed. They've suggested that a speed limit of 15 miles per hour be on that section, that we incorporate traffic calming along that roadway, and they would like to see the developer actually pay for the cost of of constructing that road. The latter, I think, is a matter of negotiation
Didn't we talk about, didn't somebody else want to develop up there?
A couple years ago.
We have now looked at three, four development, and nobody has been able to make it work. This development, we actually think, is one that will move forward. They've come up with a design that I think addresses the concerns that are out there. It will come back to council because they're going to need a departure for that cul-de-sac. But
I thought our concerns when this came up before was that we didn't really have a problem with the road, but we were concerned about that being used as a cut through at all hours of the night and day and so on and so forth, and that we contemplated making it one way out or gating it off permanently and only opening it when we deemed it appropriate. I mean, what purpose how does that help the park, having that access?
Oh, well, I think it does help the park because what it allows you to do is another way in and out of the park.
Well, yeah, because you would presume that most people that go to the softball fields would probably people that are coming from that end of the township would go that way.
See, I recall Michelle and the Parks and Rec had a concern with it being a cut through, but I thought that council supported leaving it open.
Yeah, and the Park and Rec Board has recommended this, and Michelle Harmel has never been supportive of this. She's concerned about that idea of being a cut through. But I will tell you, when you look at this, if you were trying to get across over to Bebop Road, you would not come through here as a way to save time. You would come up Proby Road and go straight across. So I don't personally think that that's a realistic thing. The thing that I do believe that the rec board has right is we would have to, in my opinion, not only incorporate traffic calming on this new section, but I think you'd want to then, as we have on this roadway elsewhere, incorporate traffic calming throughout that. Because what in essence it is a giant parking lot that you're dealing with. So,
don't even think about speed bumps.
and I don't know how else you're going to do it on the existing section. I think
In my little piece of town, there's 15 speed bumps.
I hear you.
But see, in this particular case, Mr. Bowe, I think they would be appropriate.
Well, I agree with Gary's recollection. I thought what we had concluded the last time was to leave it open and see if it became a cut through, and then we would consider gating it off. That was my recollection.
And it never becomes a cut through. I think Paul, you're right.
And half of the rec board's of the opinion that you don't need the gate. But my point is, if we put the gate up and then have to close it, I don't think we have a problem. If we don't and we go to erect the gate, there'll be some constituency who think they have a right to go across that. And I would rather have the gate there and never use it.
Okay. That's a long cut through anyhow.
It's also a very long cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
That's over 1,000 feet long, I would guess.
Well, and that's why I think they would have to come in for a departure because the red street will not be.
We're not getting into that now. Let's go.
All right, next item is permitting for Rolling Hills Drive.
There was a question, as Mrs. Marilyn had asked, about what the status is of the permitting for Rolling Hills Drive. We still do not have an HOP back from PennDOT, but what we are confident of, based upon their reviews up to this point, that the location of the drive is now fixed. And so we've been working with the school district on the location of a service road on the lower part of that property. I'm confident that we actually have that in the right place at this point. So we're still waiting on the HOP. We have to get permits from DEP as well, and I think we're probably still a few months away from having those in hand.
Okay, next item is emergency operations plan.
In your docket is the draft of the emergency operations plan up to this date. I was speaking with Chief McLaughlin. Our intention is to gather department heads that are affected by it together in mid-July, and then we'll be back shortly thereafter to council to adopt that plan.
Okay, and finally, board member recognition.
Back in May, I talked to council about, as an alternative to the dinner, is actually setting up a schedule with council to have a council person as well as Brian or myself attend And also to present a gift to board members. What I was going to propose is a $50 gift certificate to each board member. The reality of that is, at that point, we'll have spent far less than what we would have spent had we had the dinner. So
I'll be glad to go with you to the planning commission. I'll go back to my old stomping ground.
Well, yeah, what we're going to do is Ryan's going to get a hold of people and they can look at their schedule. I've tried to give you when the boards are meeting over the next couple of months. Ryan's going to coordinate people for each of those.
Is it just, is price driving this, or, I mean?
I think
No,
we just decided
it's attendance.
every year.
It's attendance. It has slipped to a point where, quite frankly, there's far more, you have far more staff and council there than you have board members. And we're well below 50% of the board members attending. So I just think it's run its course and we need to do something different.
Okay. All right, is there anything any member of council wants to see on the next agenda?
But before you get there, I've got two more items.
Oh.
And I have a question. Mr. Burke was.
As Mr. Ball's no doubt aware, we have Oakwood Drive closed. There has been a delay from the contractor, and as a result of a back order on some fixtures that he needs. So it looks as though that road is going to remain closed until the end of July. And so we're going to either the sanitary authority or the township's going to notify the residents there. But there really isn't an alternative, given the nature of that construction that's occurring.
Was this project bid? Mm-hmm. And they didn't know what they needed?
They did know what they needed, but they did not. They anticipated, and this isn't our contract. This is the sanitary authority contract.
I figured that.
And it has not arrived. So. But it's going to result in that road being closed for a couple of weeks longer.
What's the name of the contractor, just to put it on the record?
A. Moranti.
Yeah. A. Moranti.
Is there a delay clause in there, or penalty clause?
I don't know, because again, it's not our contract, it's their contract. So I don't know that.
It's very inconveniencing to the residents. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I'll tell you one thing, though. It's cut down the traffic on Oakwood Road by about 90%, which tells me what the ratio of cut-through traffic is.
And despite
Really?
that,
Is it open to local traffic?
Yeah,
it's open to local traffic.
Only local.
Yeah, but I can tell you, we're still getting complaints in the plan about the amount of traffic inside the plan. So we've been trying to work with them.
I've gotten some calls from a couple of the people with, the traffic's going in front, around their houses, and it's more than they're used to.
Yes.
But that's still local traffic. That's not cut-through traffic.
Oh, no, these are actually cars going around and back out onto West McMurray. We've installed temporary, in response to that request, temporary speed humps. The police have been down there. We've actually ticketed a number of people in that area as well.
Put some temporary spikes on.
Yeah.
Oh, I no doubt about it.
Next.
The other thing was I got a number of people who sent me letters with regard to Thomas Road and the possibility of sidewalks on Thomas Road. This is a state road, and the only thing that I would caution you is there are many state roads in Peters Township where pedestrians and bicyclists travel on. The one to me that is the poster child is the one that is down at the high school. And you can, in fact, install sidewalks on state roads. We certainly did it out here on East McMurray Road. But if you begin that process, I don't know what distinguishes Thomas Road from Churchill Road, where every morning I see people walking their dogs and walking on that road. And this would be a very expensive proposition to undertake. And they all have to, and one thing that PennDOT's going to require is that they have some logical terminus. So wherever you start that sidewalk, it's going to have to run back to some sidewalk that exists. So I appreciate the problem, but I don't think sidewalks are going to be the solution.
Yep.
Do you have an idea of any potential solution?
I don't know what you can do. I think that one thing is that when a road like Thomas Road goes in, we could request, but I don't know how PennDOT's going to react to it, is for wider berms.
What about a bike lane?
They'll paint what you'll get is share the road signs is what you're going to get.
Okay.
So is there, the question I had, that one of the people asked me, is whether there's a requirement that a certain part of the right-of-way is cut back. Like if you look further down, the bushes are much closer, where people have no place to walk at all.
The only requirement that the township enforces is site triangles at intersections.
Okay.
But if you were to plant closer to the road, that would be PennDOT's responsibility to maintain that vegetation
Okay.
on the edge of the road.
So can we ask PennDOT to put a wider berm?
We could ask. There's no problem asking that question unless they're doing a road project out there. I don't think they're going to be interested in doing it, but we can ask that.
Well, I would think ask. I mean, it doesn't have to be on both sides. Just even if it was just on one side.
Yes, I understand.
PennDOT's always so agreeable.
Well, I mean, but if we're looking at potential options, we should know up front whether they're willing to do that or not.
Yes. Oh, we can ask that
That
question.
just eliminates an option, right?
Yeah.
The question I had asked Mr. Lauer the sort of parameters of what the marketing survey related to the pool was going to be and where we were with that. I'd like to understand a little bit about who they're going to survey, how they're going to pick who they're surveying, what it's going to look like, things
Well,
like that.
we're in the process of drafting what the survey instrument is going to look like. I have explained to Campos that before that goes out, council's going to have a chance to review that survey to make sure that it meets what you're after. And at that point in time, I can provide you the parameters around which they're going to do this. I can tell you there's going to be 300 people surveyed. It's, I believe, 250 of that 300 are coming out of Peters Township. They want to check the neighboring communities because, quite frankly, that's part of the market. So.
Anybody have anything they want to see added to the next agenda?
No, but I did have a question before you turn. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I forgot to ask this when we were talking about Mr. Courtney's situation.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about some kind of permit for that bridge that needs replaced. It's structurally sound though still, right? We had somebody look at that.
We haven't. There was an engineer that I believe it's Mr. Courtney's engineer has certified and sealed that bridge is structurally sound.
And when was that done?
2017. Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Do you think maybe we should request that he have that done again? So, I mean, in 2 years, could that
I
deter?
do, personally. I mean, the bridge, we've been through this before. I mean, there's 7 girders underneath. The end 2 girders are completely shot. So the engineer's recommendation that we had look at it just for public safety purposes, and his engineer both kind of were of the opinion that, as long as the traffic was neck down to where it was over those 5 girders, which he's done, he's put guide rails and tried to reduce the traffic.
That would be okay. I didn't want the public to think that it's like a safety issue
Right.
at this point. They wouldn't be going over that bridge. Not literally, I mean figuratively. Not figuratively.
I know exactly what you meant.
And one thing I wanted to know, the gas lease we signed with Range last year, do we have any idea when the royalties are going to start coming?
I do not, but I'll tell you what, I can check on that.
Okay. Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, one other thing. Frank and I, we were talking before the meeting about the condition of Peters Lake Park. I know several years ago, I think the Fish and Boat Commission went out and they did it was a netting survey and said there were issues. Had to get into the big bass regulations. I think since that time, Frank agrees that the conditions have become much worse. It's I don't know, how would you say it nicely? It's not a great place to fish anymore.
They've deteriorated.
So I think we need to engage the Fish and Boat Commission again and
Have them come out and look at it again.
we can do something wrong with it.
Okay. All right, anything else for the good of the order? We have an executive session, Mr. Lauer?
Yes, we do.
All right, meeting adjourned.